The Ravens came into the season talking Super Bowl, but after losing to the Chiefs, even former NFL champions are saying it's over. Chris Canty, who knows what it takes to lift a Lombardi, flat out declared that Baltimore's chances are done, and that hit the locker room and the fan base like a bomb. Now the big question is, can this team still fight back, or is the season already slipping away before it even gets going? With heavy criticism, key injuries, and all the pressure falling on Lamar Jackson, the Ravens' future could be decided in the next few weeks, and what's on the line is way bigger than it looks. Chris Canty, a Super Bowl champion turned analyst, didn't hold back after Baltimore's loss to Kansas City. He straight up said the Ravens' season is over. In his view, this team doesn't have what it takes to contend for a title or even stay alive in the playoff race. And that hit differently, because it didn't come from just anyone. It came from a guy who's been to the top and knows exactly what it takes to get there. Canty's main point was execution, or the lack of it. He said Baltimore can create opportunities, but when it's time to close out drives or control the game, they fall apart. To him, that's the sign of a team that doesn't have the consistency to hang with the league's best. And against the Chiefs, that gap couldn't have been more obvious. It was like Baltimore puts flaws on display for everyone to see. What made Canty's comments sting even more is that he voiced what many were already thinking but hadn't said out loud. Maybe the Ravens just aren't serious contenders this year. Hearing a respected ex-player say that on national TV, and then watching his take blow up on First Take social media, only cranked up the pressure on this team. It felt like the patience ran out, and the alarm bells were ringing across Baltimore. That kind of statement carries serious weight, because it's not just analysis. It feels like a verdict. When a Super Bowl champ says it's over, it hits the players' confidence, it hits the fan base, and even changes how opponents see you. And for a team already in trouble, being labeled done makes the climb even steeper. And in this storm, one name rises above all others: Lamar Jackson. Because if the Ravens can't stay competitive, all eyes turn to their quarterback. After that loss to the Chiefs, it became crystal clear. Lamar Jackson is carrying a massive burden. He's always been seen as the engine of this offense, the guy who has to make something happen when everything else breaks down. But now that weight looks heavier than ever. Every mistake, every missed throw, every failed drive becomes fuel for those who doubt if he can take Baltimore to the next level. The pressure has never been higher, not just on his play, but on his health too, which has been a concern for a while. The problem is, Lamar can't do it all by himself. Baltimore's offense hasn't given him enough help, and that forces him to take on more than he should. When he has to run, throw, and escape suffocating defenses all at once, you end up with a quarterback stretched to the limit. And against a powerhouse like Kansas City, those limitations are exposed. It feels like every single snap is another test, and Lamar has to prove he can handle it all. Critics point out exactly that. Without Lamar at his absolute best, the Ravens simply can't compete. It's a dangerous kind of dependency, showing that the roster hasn't been able to answer the call in other areas. The narrative has shifted. Instead of Lamar being talked about as an MVP candidate, the conversation is whether he can withstand the pressure just to keep this season alive. That's a heavy load, and it only grows with every loss. What's even more worrying is the sense that even when Lamar tries to carry the entire team, there isn't a solid structure around him, and that leads straight into another critical problem: injuries and lack of depth, which keep exposing just how vulnerable this roster really is. You can't talk about Baltimore's struggles without talking about injuries. They become a constant issue, and in 2024, it's the same story. Lamar's health is always being watched closely, but he's not the only one. Other key players have gone down, and every absence chips away at the backbone of this team. Against the Chiefs, it was obvious. Baltimore simply didn't have enough pieces to answer when the game got tough. And it's not just about who's out, but what happens when starters are missing. Depth, which should be a strength for any team dreaming of a deep playoff run, hasn't been there. Every injury created a hole that's tough to fill, and against elite opponents, that lack of depth is exposed. It's like the Ravens are constantly playing catch-up, patching holes instead of dictating the game. That creates a domino effect. Lamar overloaded, the defense gassed, and the coaching staff left without reliable options. The loss to Kansas City made it crystal clear. When the main pieces aren't there, Baltimore loses its identity and confidence. It's not just bad luck. It's a structural problem that has haunted this franchise for years. And when the roster is stretched thin and solutions are scarce, the finger-pointing inevitably shifts to the coaching staff and John Harbaugh's decisions. Because if injuries are unavoidable, how a team adjusts to them is what separates contenders from pretenders.
All right, we're already past the halfway point of this video, but before we continue, I noticed you haven't left a like yet. It's really important because it helps YouTube keep showing you my content so I can keep bringing you the best news about the Baltimore Ravens. So go ahead and hit that like button. It's free and it really helps. Thanks. Now let's get back to it.
John Harbaugh is one of the most respected coaches in the NFL, but even he isn't immune when the results aren't there. This loss to the Chiefs wasn't seen as just a bad game. It looked like a reflection of a team that can't adjust under pressure. Repeated mistakes, sloppy execution, and a lack of answers have started to tarnish the coaching staff's image, and the criticism is only getting louder. Analysts hammered Baltimore for looking flat-out predictable against Kansas City. When the go-to plays didn't work, there was no plan B, and that's a huge problem, because in the NFL, predictability is basically a death sentence. Harbaugh and his staff know this, but they haven't found a consistent way to flip the script. The situation is even more dangerous because you can see the players feeling it. When the game plan fails, frustration spreads on the field, and you can see it in their body language. Losses stop being just about execution and become about mentality. And if there's one thing that can sink a season faster than injuries or mistakes, it's a team that stops believing in the vision coming from the sideline. Now, the coaching staff is cornered. They need answers, and they need them fast, even with a banged-up roster and relentless pressure. The problem? Time is running out, and every single game is carrying more weight. And that's why Baltimore's season now feels like it's walking a razor's edge. At 1-3, the Ravens are standing at a crossroads. Every game from here on out could decide the fate of their season. The margin for error is basically gone, and that puts enormous pressure on the entire team. Some still say it's too early to write them off, that once key players return and the system clicks, they could turn it around. But the reality is, the clock is ticking, and each loss makes that road back look even less likely. The upcoming schedule doesn't do them any favors either. Baltimore is about to face tough opponents, and any slip-up could be fatal. The atmosphere around the team is one of urgency, almost desperation. This isn't just about playing well anymore. It's about survival, about keeping playoff hopes alive. And the truth is, that kind of pressure takes a heavy toll, both physically and mentally, especially on a group that's already shaken. The next stretch will reveal if this roster has the fight left to respond. The talent is there, no doubt, but questions about consistency, health, and the franchise's direction loom larger than ever. From the outside, it already looks like the season is spiraling, but inside the locker room, it's on them to prove there's still time to flip the script. The big question is, who's going to step up and take control before it's too late? And through it all, Chris Canty's words are still hanging in the air. Because when a Super Bowl champ says it's over, the only way to shut him up is by showing the opposite on the field. For the Ravens, that response has to come now. The loss of the Chiefs left deep scars in Baltimore. Chris Canty's harsh words hit hard because they echo what many are already starting to believe. Maybe this team isn't built to compete at the highest level. Between the pressure on Lamar Jackson, the injuries that keep exposing the roster's flaws, and a coaching staff struggling for answers, the Ravens are living in a moment where every detail matters, and every mistake could cost them their season. This is a true turning point. Either they respond now and prove they still have the strength to fight, or their playoff hopes could vanish long before December. So here's the question. Do you believe Baltimore can silence the critics and bounce back, or is Canty right that the season is already over? One thing's for sure, the next few games will tell us everything about the Ravens' real destiny.
And if you, just like me, are passionate about the world of football and want to learn more about the Ravens' legacy, don't leave this video without sharing it with that friend who is also a Baltimore Ravens fan and will love this content. See those video suggestions on your screen? The first one was handpicked just for you, and the other is a recommendation from YouTube itself.